Lights off, please, Dominic, if you could. So real quick, what's going on today, this week here? Your big sort of thing that you need to know is that on Tuesday I'm going to be giving out non-Western Project 2. This project is going to be due the 13th, which is, I think, it's like a Wednesday or a Thursday. Thursday. Is it a Wednesday or is it a Thursday? It's a Thursday. So you'll have about a week and a half to complete it. So just know that you're going to be doing the second iteration of those non-Western projects of the Middle Ages. So the first one was sort of an ancient global perspective. Now it's on the second half, which is like the Middle Ages global perspective. So your chapters are you're gonna reflect those sections. Today, hopefully, we'll finish Byzantine, or at least as much as I can. Most Byzantine works post-iconoclasm, like that after the Basil I kind of era, are just sort of, I think they're non-essential works. They mostly are going to just be based on the content of the New Testament, and are going to be more, again, continuing the appropriation of icons. That is to say, they're going to be using icons, again, as devotion towards worship of the deity, of Jesus, or of the Trinity in particular. So we'll be looking at St. Mark's Cathedral, which I do think is an essential work because how it overlaps with multiple genres throughout history. It has a continual building history to it. So we'll be looking at that as well as icons and post-iconoclasm. Whenever we finish is whenever we finish. If you have specific questions about snapshots and whether or not I've gotten to all the snapshots on your paper or not, that's obviously a different question. You can ask that today. Tomorrow we're going to try and get to Hiberno-Saxon art, and that's why you have a new packet out, so you can start that process early. So start reading the chapter, getting some notes done ahead of time so that you're ready to talk about Hiberno-Saxon art. We're going to start with luxury items, those tiny items that are very precious to the peoples up in the western and northwestern of Europe. On Wednesday, we're going to continue with Carolinian and Ottonian. Hopefully we finish both of those on Wednesday so that on Thursday we can work on writing practice. Again, you'll be coming in. I'm hoping you'll come in with your speak out finished, and that we will have you, not your snapshots, your speak out peer edit. So I want you to have your speak outs ready to go so that we can edit them together, discuss them, as well as do practice with your thesis statements and with Mark's paragraphs. On Friday, you'll have your lab quiz. As semi-usual, I know sometimes we miss those or we do different things on Fridays, but you will have a quiz that day, as well as the thematic unit will be on universal religious symbols. So make sure that you're ready for that on the thematic unit day on Friday. Today you will be turning in the Byzantine packets, all else considered. If you're not finished with them and you know you're going to get them done tonight, turn them in first thing tomorrow. Chances are I won't even notice. So you can do that. However, again, it's like you are in disciplining with your own grade. So if you don't get it done and you like wait next week or whatever, then it's going to reflect on your score report. So I hate for that to happen. Just get it in if you don't have it done tonight or today. Get it done tonight. Finish it today. Turn it in tomorrow. All right? The packet. But it's technically due today. So I want to see that you have made the attempt. If you feel like you're not going to get it done tonight because you have other things going on, turn it in now. You get some revisions, requirements, and then you'll have it back out. Hopefully you can get it done by the end of the week with the revisions. Yes?
Oh, okay, so as I was looking through the snapshots and I was doing the snapshots, I came across this one and I don't really understand its use.
Okay, do you know what it's called?
Yeah, it's the Christ enthralled with saints. It says that it was used for private devotion, but I don't understand what that is.
Like private worship?
Oh yeah. So private devotion is a term that describes when people have, like, if you're a rich person, that you, instead of going to the crowds with the plebeians, with the regular folk, you can actually have church in your own house.
Oh.
Private devotion. So usually it's like, in that case, it looked like it's a triptych, which means it's a 3-paneled altar place that can open and close. So it sort of has this ability to be portable, and you can open it up and have your little prayer, your little communion, all that kind of stuff. You can have it right in the luxury of your own chapel, even, maybe. So a lot of these, you'll start seeing these in private residence halls and in royal residence halls. in the next 100 years or 200 years or so, you'll be seeing churches being included within people's private residences. You can see them even today, like in the Palace of Versailles from the 17th and 18th century, and others. These fancy places all have chapels that they keep within their houses. Any questions about the week and what's going on with the weekly agenda? If you have permission slips, you can turn those in. Let's go and just collect them now so that they're in a separate pile. If you don't have the permission slip today, try and get it done tomorrow. There's really no reason to wait on that. I know I didn't do a survey for you guys over the weekend. I'll try and get that this week. I'll do it on my prep. I've been busy. Obviously, Halloween was kind of a fun thing for all of us. This was on Friday. Probably partied too hard. And we'll get back in the groove this week here. But it's really fun. We've got 3 weeks left. I just need to know who's coming, who's not, so I can get you guys lunches. So if you have your permission slips, just go ahead and have them on the center table right now. And then Annika, if you can just collect those for me and just put it in this bin so I can keep them separate. Yes.
Okay,
Go do that now.
It doesn't cost money.
Yeah. I need both of them.
It doesn't cost money, right?
Well, actually, you know what? It does not cost money.
And second question.
Go ahead and hold on to the where it shows your calendar. That's really for you to hold on to. I really only need the legal document, which is the one with your permission slip grades, and the grades of your family. So if you don't have the grades of your teachers yet, just hold on to them, okay? And get those done first, because I need those. Yeah, that's necessary. Yeah.
Oh, another question. I was wondering that, like, that one traditional to that artwork.
Yeah.
It says that it's with some of the classical.
Right.
Is that common?
Yes, and we're going to talk about that post-iconoclasm today. So good pull. There is a continuation of classical methods so there's not a full rejection of old forms, and we'll see how they'll show up again and again. I left off with this sort of shifty-eyed Jesus icon, which is called the Pantocrator. I've said that word several times, just to know that Pantocrator is the official term for what in the Greek means bread of life. So whenever you see Jesus, often with a beard in this context, and certainly holding on to something in his hand, perhaps some type of object that maybe kind of looks like a shard of bread or something like that, is what we mean by the Pantocrator. That is Jesus giving of himself. This sort of stern-looking Jesus is a Jesus more of judgment than a Jesus of the Good Shepherd variety. So already we're seeing distinctions in the way in which Jesus is depicted, depending on the flavor of the era and as well as the culture. And then certainly within the emphasis of the particular icon. Is Jesus in this icon meant to be sort of stern and judgmental, or is this an icon of comfort and of sort of bringing in of the fold, of protection? And so you see this kind of subtleties going on with the way religious symbols are developed in the 10th century, 10th and 11th century. So this is 1090 to 1100, and this mosaic in Delphi represents the same structures we've been seeing. Remember, gold represents what? It's heaven itself. Yeah, gold represents heaven. It's an abstraction of a idea we can't define. The language here connected to words, very important, become symbols themselves. Much like in the Islamic tradition of using symbols based on the Shahada or other important prayers or works from the Quran. You have the same kind of thing going on here with in this case, this is the ichthys, which is the ICXC, which are descriptions of like an acronym, Jesus Christ being Lord, connected together, and it's also an acronym that will represent the fish, which will be one of our symbols we discuss on Friday. Nimbus on the back. Know the basic formula for an icon. Typically a nimbus, gold mosaic, important sort of abbreviations or lettering, and then symbols, usually the character holding on to things that you can obviously make reference to and analyze. Yes?
Okay.
Beatrice.
Oh, okay. I was gonna ask, in a way, do they consider like a higher scale? Because you know how they usually have the bottom and the top. I don't know if that is right, but I think
You'd only use hierarchical scale if Jesus is next to someone who's much smaller than him.
Oh, okay. But if it's just trying to show that he's superior.
Yeah, you can talk about the emphasis of this. You can use scale. I wouldn't use the word hierarchical unless you're talking about him being bigger than other people, so like a proportion thing. But scale for this work is certainly an important principle of design that's used. These works, if they're small, they don't necessarily mean unimportance. They might just mean that they're personal. So you got to know that how to connect it appropriately in context. Whereas this work, because it's probably on the top of like a pendentive structure on a church, might be a way to sort of unite people underneath a single roof, and therefore the scale is also equally important, being large as well as if it were to be small for a different reason. Yeah.
What does ichthys mean?
Ichthys is an acronym that means of a fish, so the word fish. But we see it here as sort of Jesu Christo is the Christ. So Jesus Christ is sort of the Lord, and this is sort of the background. This is the acronym that creates what will be even today the symbol of a fish for Christianity. But it actually has very, very early origins as a secret acronym. Yes. There's different ways to spell it because it's a transliteration. But how do they spell it with a K? Yeah, because of the kappa, right? So that's fine.
So Panticator doesn't mean bread of life, it means ruler of all.
Okay, so it means ruler of all, bread of life, ruler of all. So you're saying it's completely different?
It sounds completely different.
Well, I would take issue only because the word pan is a word that is very consistent with the word bread, but I could be totally wrong.
It does say Christ is ruler and judge. He says more than judgmental.
That's true. So let's make sure that we know that Pantocrator is also ruler of all. So write that down. Thank you for that. Put +5 on your paper for the correction. Let's continue with this. Again, in Daphne in Greece here, 1090, the same church. We have a sort of classic depiction now of the crucifixion. If you've noticed, crucifixion, unless we have sort of been self-selecting, I don't know, but for most part, the crucifixion and the image of the crucifixion is sort of not really depicted as much until about the 9th or 10th century. Not to say that it's not always there, or that you don't have crosses being used, but the actual depiction of the crucifixion itself is sort of not as favorable. Why is that, you think? Again, what is the continual sort of fear that we, especially that we come out of in the 9th century?
Oh, that God is punishing them for worshiping idols.
Yeah, so the idea of the worry about idols is this continual issue with Christianity throughout Europe. And so the depiction of the crucifixion, in particular what we call the corpus, which is actually having a body on the cross, is kind of a worry. So you see this kind of prop up in certain places, particularly in the East. They enjoy the use of icons robustly, so they're using the corpus and all the symbols involved with that. Notice, for instance, that the skull is at the bottom here of the cross. This represents the place in which Jesus is crucified, Golgotha, which represents, it means the place of the skull. You have two people who were in the gospel accounts that were with Jesus during the crucifixion. Who do you think this is? Mary. How do we know?
They're like, oh,
She's a female. She's crying, and then
She
of
has
course.
that,
Remember, we're in a continual transformation of the what we call Marian devotion, Marian theology, which is the elevation of Mary as an important person alongside Jesus. So Mary has the nimbus, Jesus has the nimbus with the equilateral cross behind him, and then you also have John, not John the Baptist, but John the beloved, or John, one of the apostles, the writer of the Gospel of John. And so we have the crucifixion represented. We have the piercing of the side, and the sort of the not idealized, because it's not idealized to have squirting blood out of the side of your. Idealized squirting blood out of you is perfectly rendered. It's more like this. It's stylized. That's a better way to say it. It's a stylized fountain almost coming down out of him. That blood out of the side represents his death, and that his shedding of blood. So that was a way that they determined death during Roman crucifixion. So that was included in the account. So that becomes a symbol that's used quite often, the blood being shed. Yes?
Are those angels up?
Probably. It's been kind of messed up, huh? But they're There certainly is going to be something with flowing grapery up there. Dominic.
Is there a reason why the blood didn't touch the ground?
I don't know. I don't know if there's something specific I need to know about whether it's touching the ground or not. Typically, it's not. It's usually, sometimes it's even being kind of in a creepy, I don't know if it's creepy, but it's symbolically, it's being caught in a cup. So normally they continue the symbol of his death in a way that's like, and now you share that death with communion. So they connect the blood of Christ to the cup of wine that would be used in the Catholic rite of communion. So you'd be seeing that develop there. But that's a good question. I don't know if it's supposed to be like hitting the ground or not. Anyways, I guess what I'm trying to say with this culture, and then when we get to the different monotheistic religions, particularly Islam, and then into the non-Western polytheistic religions like Hinduism, you're going to need to do at least a wiki cursory look at what the texts themselves say. So I would suggest doing like this week, especially since we hit the Middle Ages. If you haven't read the Bible or you don't do that kind of thing as a normal religious practice, then I suggest at least having a cursory understanding of it for our history's sake. Go to Wikipedia, type in New Testament, read about some of the listing of the events so that you can try and identify them on the AP test as you need to. Or because if you're going to use Byzantine work for your free responses, you might want to know enough about the background to discuss it fully, to know what those symbols mean as part of your marks paragraphs. Ashley.
Is there another website we can use besides Wikipedia?
Yeah, there's as far as religious, for the religious text or just in general for history? For art history, sure. There's a website called smarthistory.org, which it's like an online textbook of art history, and it's nice. It has nice animated sort of transitions and that sort of thing. That'd be the one off the top of my head. I also have on my that original paper I gave you with all the resources. There's some resources there. And then on the syllabus, I think it was the blue or yellow. It was the original resource page that has like what the marks mean and how to structure a thesis statement, fill in the blank style, etc. Let's look at Saint Mark's Cathedral in Venice. By the way, a lot of these churches, these cathedrals that are being developed around relics. And I haven't really mentioned this yet because we'll mention it more fully when we get to the Romanesque period in about 2 weeks. But relics are really sort of the basis for a lot of the economy of these European and Eastern Christian communities. Cathedrals are what put people on the map. If you have a cathedral in your area, usually it allows for an economy to be surrounded because people are coming in trying to see your relic. And St. Mark's is no different. See, St. Mark has a sort of bone fragments of all the different saints in these different areas. And so there's a lot of pronouncements of what fragments people have. I have the femur of St. Mark. Well, I have the skull of St. Peter. I have a thorn of Jesus' cross, and et cetera, et cetera. So you have all these little relics that go out, and they become full-on economies for the people to go and show devotion to these various aspects, these various relics. And so St. Mark's represents the first of the new grand style of architecture. Grand style of architecture with this sort of large-scale church building once again. And so Venice itself is growing into its own seat of independent power. Really, Venice itself, even today, if you were to go to Venice, really has its own flair to it. It's a very different place than the rest of Italy. It has these. It was based on like a system of judges that were governing it called doges. And it has a very eastern flair to it because it's closer to the eastern shoreline. It has a whole maritime economy, so it's got a lot of different things than what you'll see with, for instance, Middle Ages in Italy and the rest of Italy, like Florence and Rome. So it'll look like Byzantine, but it'll have a distinctive, independent quality to it. And I'll show you the outside to show you what looks Eastern, but also sort of Basilican of the West. These relics are of St. Mark, like I mentioned, and then William II is the patron. He pays for the mosaics, and these mosaics display both his own piety as well as his power. So just like Justinian and the attendants in the 6th century with Ravenna's church in Santa Italia, as well as in the east with Hagia Sophia, we have a symbol of power. These churches are not just devotion elements. They are political propaganda. So this is the 11th century. Let's look at the floor plan. It's a cruciform plan, which means that it's kind of like a radial design where it looks like it's rounded because it has an equilateral quality to it. So all the sides are fairly equal. Except the backside has these sort of radiating arcades, this arcade that kind of circumnavigates the structure. And this is one of our, since it's in the 11th century, it's one of our first churches that we really start seeing the use of relics as a part of their economy. So you're seeing that, for instance, you see like crowd control, that the architecture is designed to allow for lots of people to come in and come around and have their sort of their pilgrimage to a particular site, go to the apse in the back, and then come back without disturbing anyone worshiping in the center, or disturbing anyone worshiping in sort of the outer chapels. And this way you get a lot of people coming in and out. They're paying their tithe, or they're giving alms, and doing the things that they need to do in order to feel pious. What it reminds me of, well, I should ask you, what does it remind you of, this idea of using architecture and to think about crowd control, how to get people in and out? This is a classical feature. This is the Colosseum. It's just a different form of entertainment. And not to cheapen it, but it is part of what these cultures are doing as a form of what they value and what they practice. So much like the Colosseum, these churches function as an economy. Okay. What we see here, that Christ is Pantocrator, that is the ruler of all. Thank you for that correction. The image is at the end of the church, and this is opposed to it being in the central dome. So it has a natural sort of end point, and then you go back around to the outside on the other side. So the image of the Christ as ruler will be on the apse in the back. And here is the image of the Pantocrator there again. Jesus is ruler of all. Certainly, as Beatrice mentioned, the idea of scale here can be used in particular because of the proportions with the rest of the characters. Jesus is sort of this monster in the back of the apse here, this big character that takes up the entirety of the apse. His hair looks like a monster. He looks like he's got this big mane of hair here, certainly. Almost like a mullet. Just kind of pulling in the back there.
What is it? Business in the front, party in the back.
That's what Jesus is as well. He's got the party in the back going on. Must have been a particular hairstyle maybe at the time. Who knows? A lot of this, again, is the stylizations of the people that are creating images. So it would sort of be like, like Jesus in a tuxedo today or something like that. That's how they're developing these characters. These robes and structures here are based on the style and fashion of the time. It's not necessarily a historical Jesus, right? So this King William II is paying for these mosaics. I already mentioned that. It's much like Justinian. These characters are representative of his own power. So all the Jesus and all the images that are displayed here are representations of them. We have sort of the abstract textures of flora and fauna around the border of the apse, and then through this sort of half dome or the half drum here on the sides are going to be important saints, and you guys are familiar with how to identify features within the Pantocrator himself. One little characteristic here is a tangent, and we'll talk about this on Friday, but what do you think he's doing right here? Is he throwing up like a gang sign or something?
I don't even know.
Does anyone think? Ashley, try to guess at what this is. It kind of looks like peace. In fact, that's kind of where we get the symbol of peace from. So you guys do that in like elementary school when it's really loud or whatever, and I'm go shh.
No, I never saw that.
You never did that?
I did it all the time.
Yeah, that was like a normal like you're like instantly like oh shh. you know, like
I don't know where that went though. When I stopped doing that.
yeah, Miss, you know, your kindergarten teacher, Miss Buchanan or whatever, is like, shh, Miss Buchanan, I'm doing it, okay? Just let you know, give me points or whatever. Goody two shoes, wanting everyone to be quiet all the time. I did that too. I was like, oh, shh, everyone, shh, I'm quiet. That actually comes from this religious idea of peace. So we kind of think about this as like a peace sign, but it actually has a more a theological underpinning. It's not quite a peace sign. It's more like it's almost like a gang sign. I don't know the way he's kind of throwing it up, because it represents letters. There's actually letters involved. There's like an X involved and there's a C involved with the way. So it's like it's actually it's Jesus Christ. It's a symbol that represents his own name. So it's like him throwing up this sort of gang sign about his own name. It's like Prince or something. He has a symbol for his own name. And we'll look at these. These are called Christograms or gang signs. No, don't call them gang signs. They're Christograms.
What? That's what they're really called?
They're called Christograms. It's like a telegram, only for Christ.
It sounds like a
Christogram.
Like a cracker, Christ.
Yeah.
It's like Christ.
It's like Google.
It's like Instagram for Christians.
Yeah, it's like There you go. It's like Instagram for Christians. This is exactly right. It's an image. That's Justin put plus 3. That was funny.
That is not.
It's like Instagram before the internet.
No.
So.
It gets for Instagram.
So Justinian builds this whole like network called Christbook, but then only moms come on it and clergy. So everyone else, like the younger Christians, need to have their own sort of special thing that their moms aren't on. So they create Christograms.
So you have to dash.
So their teachers don't know anything about it. They're just like, back and
Don't
forth.
worry,
Just
I
pictures.
blocked
They don't need any of that dumb, words or anything. Just pictures. So I think it's so weird about Instagram. It's just pictures. I don't know how to even communicate with pictures.
That's amazing though. See, instead of writing about stupid things like I'm eating a bagel.
Yeah, see, now I need to actually type something up and then take a picture of it and put it on Instagram before anyone sees it. So I couldn't possibly, keep control of my Facebook page and have you guys ever, pay attention anymore. Different times. Can't keep up. Notice the top of the cathedral. Dome heavy much, right? It has a lot of domes on it. So we see each one of these areas is sort of its own worship space. So they're not just domes. They're actually domes on drums, and the drums are then standing on pendentives. The whole process then creates a very open space in the inner areas, but then the outer areas it looks very massive and fortress-like. So the structure has elements of the Byzantine, the East qualities, and certainly the facade you'll see with these sort of ogival type archways that are real like curving like onions, like onion domes. And the onion dome quality, if you think about like a dome that kind of goes swoosh up like that and kind of gets bulbousy and then kind of has a little point in the center, what does that kind of look like to you if you're to think about country or an idea that kind of has those onion dome qualities? Yeah, like a Russia, right, which is like an Eastern Orthodox. It's the same thing in the Byzantine. And in fact, that style, the Byzantine Orthodox style, will continue in Russia today. Good. Put plus 3 in your paper. Taj Mahal in Islamic also has onion dome qualities as well. Very good. Put plus 3 in your paper. That was the second of the two that uses ogival. But you'll see the ogival arches in the front of the facade. So would you say, this work, does it look Western or Eastern? Right? It looks kind of Eastern. It doesn't look like it comes out of the Roman tradition. And there's reasons for that. Venice is in that maritime community, like I mentioned, and it's right in the middle. And maritime means like trade through boats, like boating. And there's a lot of people coming in and out, so architecture is going to display the styles of the East. So that's why you have this ogival quality, this onion dome quality to the facade. Yes?
Is the Mosque of Istanbul going to be one of our artworks?
Well, the Hagia Sophia is what you're talking about?
No.
Or is it a secondary mosque? Oh, the blue mosque. No, I don't have that as one of the works for Byzantine.
Not Byzantine.
But it'll be as far as the Islamic Middle Ages. Absolutely, yeah. You can talk about the blue mosque. We'll look at the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, which stands on the Solomon's temple structure. You'll have that, which is a very important sign. In fact, even today, there's a lot of contention about the Dome of the Rock. It's in the news all the time. But we'll look at that. You'll look at that in your non-Western projects. All right. So this is the facade. Several. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have these 5 portals within the work here, and
They're like
we haven't defined all these terms yet because you'll get them in the Romanesque when we look at Saint Sermon and other churches. But just know that a portal is a big door, and usually that door is, like you said, half domes that sort of indent inward. And usually in these half domes, they depict something to do with judgment. Why would you have judgment when you walk into a church?
Because you're supposed to act like,
I guess, yeah. I mean,
church,
the most root way of saying it is, just make you feel guilty. It is to break somebody down so that when they come out of the church, they're lifted up again in forgiveness. So break them down, lift them up. It's all form of the crowd control. Yeah.
Why do we have the Byzantine snapshots?
Say it again.
We have the same snapshot on one of the snapshots.
Oh, it might be a different church. Are you looking at a church interior maybe, or?
No, it's not the exact
It's
same
the exact
one.
same picture? All right, so you're just putting the exact same work there. It might be something that is redone again in the second chapter. Could be a mistake.
No, it's the same one. Just write down St. Mark's Cathedral.
Yeah, and in part because we're seeing an east-west similarity, and we look at the church itself actually has new renovations in a different time. So we'll look at the bell tower in the second one. That's actually a good point. Thank you. 4+3 on the paper, because there's a bell tower that goes in the later part of the Middle Ages, which we're not looking at yet. Here's an interior shot. Take a look. It's very beautiful, as always.
So it's
And
gold.
I want to give you a quick sort of tip. Once we look at the works in the museums, in which they take Byzantine gold-leafed or mosaic elements out of the context, it diminishes the quality. In my AP test question, when I took this test back in 03, so about 10, 11 years ago now, my free response question was about how a work changes, the message of the work changes when it's removed from the context, removed from its original location. Byzantine work that you're going to see at LACMA could satisfy that question easily. So that was, I'm just kind of giving you an example of why we think about these things from an art historical perspective. Because a lot of the work, when you see it in person, in its location, it really is a different experience. When you look at St. Mark's Cathedral in Venice, and to see it overwhelming you with the architecture, in the back. You guys have a question, or Jamie? You guys talking about this or something else? Or? I'd love to help you guys. Please stop it because it's making me hard for me to talk. Thank you. When you see it in person, you see this sort of overwhelming quality of all of it kind of bringing together this unity. So that's really what a lot of this work is meant to be, is the principle of design of unity. When the work is united together, the icons connected to the architectural space that it's meant to be in, and then along with all the worshipers in hushed reverence with the candles and the smells, it really adds the whole quality of authenticity. When you see it in the museum, it's going to be sort of a sterilized version of that, where you're just looking at one work in isolation. You kind of go, oh, that's stupid. Why would anyone like that? But in the space, it's very different. It's unified. And so what I want you to write about this particular shot of this photograph is that this unification of the image with the architecture is prominent in Christian Europe throughout the Middle Ages. So just know that you're going to be combining icon, which is images, with the architecture. The two are meant to be one, and they're meant to be taken as one. And it's meant to be overwhelming. So every space here is telling a story. Why is it telling a story? Why not just read it in a book? We're talking about getting the information out to an illiterate population, the common folk, who come in and are overwhelmed with the power of Christ, but are also overwhelmed with the power of the church, and are overwhelmed with the power of the community and the economy of the church, and also subsequently the political power of the church alongside the empire. So all that's taken together, and you get a very powerful architectural and iconic symbol. Gold leaf everywhere, right? This is very expensive to put this gold leaf up on these structures. We have these pendentives, okay, that are depicting all sorts of icons here. From Christ and the Old Testament, throughout each one of these works here representing different stories within the Old and New Testaments. Stories that you should kind of know to be able to identify as you see them on the AP test. Another interior shot of one of the central domes. One of the pullouts from one of the icons here, this is called the anastasis, which is the pulling up of somebody from the dead. So it has to do with Jesus in a resurrected state, bringing people to life. Is a symbol of the newness of life that Jesus provides in his resurrected state over death. And this is, and not to get too theological, but this is part of the central message of the Eastern Church in general, is that Christ defeats death, which is kind of different than the Western Church, which will be about Jesus being the sacrifice for God's judgment. So there's two different subtle variations that you'll see in the work. But that's really not necessary to know a whole lot, but I think it's an interesting theological point about why they mention this. When you see works in the Middle Ages, when we see the Middle Ages in this new packet, you'll see works that are more about God's judgment on Jesus on the cross. So they'll be very focused on the sort of the death of Jesus as opposed to the resurrection. These are luxury items, reliquaries, and other things that are within the church itself. They're usually embedded with precious stones. You can see each one of these in their cloistered archways. These niches represent either repeating patterns of angels or of saints. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 and 6 make 12. Is 12 an important number in Christianity? 12 tribes of Egypt, of Israel in the Old Testament, and 12 apostles in the New Testament. So right, and so these symbols can be just developed as sheep or something else, but you have this symbol of 12 being used within the reliquary. And this more than likely holds the Pala de Oro, the reliquary of Saint Mark. Here's a small icon here in precious stones, perhaps a book cover or some other type. Yeah, cloisonne. It's like either a book cover, or a clasp, or a bracket, or something like that would be used to connect things together. And this is a Western tradition element that's being brought in. So we'll be looking at that this week. Small luxury goods that are all precious and special that come out of the Viking traditions and all these kind of interesting Germanic tribes. They get co-opted in Christianity. Beatrice and the Justin. Yeah.
Whenever you were talking about the San tower, why it's octagonal?
I think I talked about the octagonal elements last week.
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah, I mentioned why is it, Dominic? Remember? What is how many sides are in an octagon? 8. How many days of creation are there? 7.
And they created a lot one.
And then there's a new creation that occurs with baptism or with Jesus' resurrection. So 8 represents the idea of new creation. So octagonal structures, like in San Vitalia, represent the 8th day of creation. If you go to a Catholic church, you might check the baptismal font. It might be octagonal, which is that it's the 8th day of creation, the new life or the new baptism. Yes.
Going back to the 12 thing, weren't there like 12 disciples also?
Yeah, so there was 12 of the tribes and then 12 apostles. So there's usually a 24 number, which means completeness of the Old and New Testament. Interesting numerology. Jews love numbers and numerological significance, and so you see that in certain texts, like in Ezekiel and Daniel, as well as in Revelation. No, not like Revelation, Assassin's Creed. Although, yeah, let's bring it in. Let's bring in Assassin's Creed, and we'll do that just because of that word, Revelation. No.
No, I'm getting
Quiet.
PS4.
No, it doesn't matter. I don't care.
Getting
Not PS4.
Unity.
That didn't work last time. this work here shows an archangel. On Friday with our religious symbols, we'll talk about the history of the depiction of angels, where they come from, what the words archangel and how this all structures. The angels of the Old and New Testaments are actually not this. This is a classical remnant, and Beatrice mentioned what's left over from classical traditions. Well, one thing is the hybrid of human and animal, which is what you see with the depiction of angels. You ever thought of an angel as a hybrid of human and animal? It is. You just don't ever think of it like that because it comes from that Nike symbol, remember? Victory, right? And she was a woman that had the wings. So that's usually a carryover from the Greco-Roman world. Angels in the Old Testament are actually more, if we're talking about literal depictions, be more like this. What in the world is that? Does anyone know?
It's a fish. Seraph.
It's a seraph. Do you know why or?
I don't know why. Not really.
You're like, oh, I should know, but I don't. I got it. I understand. It's actually because it's actually because these are all wings, and the angels in the book of Ezekiel have a bunch of wings over their faces, and their bodies have like hundreds of eyes on them, and their wings are all covering. There's like six wings total or something that's just covering up all their eyes because God's too holy to see, and so we have this sort of this symmetrical depiction of these winged creatures with all the wings covering up their bodies. Basically, just a big wing ball, big fur ball of wings, and that's what angels are up until the 11th and 12th centuries. But there is sort of an easier to a more palatable description of it if you just take the goddess of Nike and just say she's an angel, an archangel, and then you're good to go. Yeah.
I read about this somewhere. I know this.
There's a
I
movie.
think it had to do with like how their wings meant something to God. I don't know.
Yeah. I think I said what they are. They're hiding their face from God who's too holy. Here's an aerial view of St. Mark's with the bell tower. It's called a campanile, or a disengaged bell tower. So you can see the structure sort of opposite, and this would be calling people to worship. That's why it's also in the Middle Ages description, because we look at that being built in the Middle Ages after the Byzantine early structure. We're looking at the original basilica, and now you guys are looking at the campanile and the aerial. Yeah.
You go back one to the hybrid angel.
Yeah.
Has a nimbus, and
Right.
the
Is she
normal
holy?
depicted one doesn't. But I thought it was kind of how they justify it without the covering of their eyes. They're like this is a holy figure, so that's why they don't need to cover their face.
Right. It sort of just depends on what story is being told with the depiction of angels. Now, certainly we get the sense of the Old Testament symbols of the angels being too holy, but this character in the middle, in part because archangels they're often used as proxies for Jesus himself. So in the book of Revelation, for instance, Jesus is actually depicted as an archangel who's coming down from heaven with keys to the gates of hell and this sort of thing. So the idea of sort of an angel-like structure may or may not actually need to be uncovered, because it could be, again, a symbol of God himself, just depicted as an angel. Does that make sense? So like God could be actually an angel, not just his angels, lower a. I don't know. The symbols are fluid. They change over time and are very interesting to think about. That's what art is. It's sort of this constantly changing thing. Yeah?
What is that wide open space next to the bell tower?
This space here?
Yeah.
This is like a courtyard that's full of pigeon poop.
Oh.
So that's what it's actually a den of pigeons. No, I mean, it's right now, today it's like a cafe, bistro, beatnik kind of place to hang out. But it was originally the courtyard, and this whole structure here would have been administrative offices for the church, as well as apartments for various merchants and people around administrative areas. So this is definitely a thoroughfare. It was like a market thoroughfare, a courtyard for the church, which was the central hub of so much of this living space. But today it's like people like to throw, it's really gross. People throw pigeon feed all over them. Are like, yeah, take it, So they get on the ground. They're like, like, haha, this is great. Like the pigeons are all over the place. It's so gross. I just look at them and it's like, We get the Ebola with this.
You
Okay?
just have
I thought
Bird
Ebola-
flu or whatever.
Ebola
I don't
is
know.
from
I don't know
bats.
how it's transmitted, but I know you're
It's
gonna
from
get it
bats.
with whatever you're doing right now.
It was that SARS that they thought
Yeah.
was the chicken.
It was
I
the
think
SARS
was
and
SARS.
the bird flu, all this kind of avian
You
flu.
should do
Whatever.
that.
It was gross. Whenever you see someone do it, I just take a picture. I'm like, you're an idiot.
Is that where the pox came from?
Not doing that. I'm like drinking my cappuccino. Like, no. Okay, yeah.
That rectangular building is Doge's palace. It's next to it, right?
Yes, I think you're accurate on that. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Okay, then in that case, I was
Next
there.
to the
You were at the Doges.
Yeah.
Now, tell me a little bit about your experience in Venice. What did you do?
I don't remember it much because it was a while back.
Oh, you're young. But did you end up seeing? Do you remember seeing this picture here of St. Mark's or
I
anything?
do. I didn't recognize it at first.
Yeah, you don't know much about it.
Yeah,
It's
we
just a
didn't.
cool
We
church.
weren't able to go inside.
Did you eat the
but we did see
gelato?
the Doge's.
Yeah, and the Doge's Palace is pretty cool. Today it's a museum, but it was an important administrative place. It was the seat of the political power. Makes sense that the seat of the political power is right next door to the seat of the religious power. The two are kind of connected together.
See, now why can't America be like that?
Because we have this whole thing called separation of church and state, which is something that I don't want to get into right now. But you're right.
Come on.
It's probably better that we don't have churches dictating. That's sort of the reason why America exists. Okay. Anyways, luxury arts involved with this. Kind of moving quickly here. These are, when we say luxury arts or luxury items, they're items that are meant for non-church context. This is like, I'm a pious merchant and I go to a guy like a goldsmith and say, I want a beautiful picture, an icon of Jesus to put in my house to bless my house. And so it's a luxury item as someone who's got enough wealth to create their own religious artifacts. And so you get this going on here with this this character. In this case, this is becomes a gift to a church. So it's a guy who's like a benefactor says, hey, if I buy something for the church, maybe I'll get a little bit of extra clout, religious clout, as a result. Or maybe it's got pure altruism. Maybe a guy just truly loves Jesus and wants to give something to the church. More than likely, though, this is a lot more of like a business transaction than anything else, a quid pro quo or something. St. Mark's has these gifts to the church. This character here is Empress Irene, so this is a depiction of the Empress. Okay, so it's an Empress in the style of Jesus.
Oh, I thought it was Jesus for a second.
Yeah, you would think it could be something like that.
It
So
looks
no.
like Michael Jackson.
And Michael Jackson, yeah, it actually looks like Michael Jackson. Right.
Maybe that's what
I
he
got
was
that.
aiming for. He was like aiming to look like Jesus.
The Empress, or Jesus, maybe looking like Jesus. Anyways, there's several works like that. Christ enthroned with the saints, again, is a luxury item. It's an ivory triptych, so this is a small good. It's for, as I think it was Beatrice that asked what personal devotion is.
Oh, yeah.
Personal devotion is I can walk around like a briefcase and set it down and open it up.
I'm afraid that's really awkward. Just walking around for a
Well, you know,
Let's
why
walk
not?
away.
Why not? Especially when everyone's doing it. It's a cool thing to do. It'd sort of be like taking out your phone to check your messages. You guys are like having personal devotion to your own hubris and your own vanity, right? So you just don't realize it. You guys are all worshiping the god of Vanitas right there. So I should have changed all your backgrounds to a picture of a skull and a candle and some grapes or something dying, because that's all you're doing is just thinking about your own youth and I'm gonna die soon.
You're just telling like that's really deep.
Well, happy Halloween.
I'm
for
about
you
to
there.
die.
You're about to, every time you think of it, it's just the clock ticking down on your digital
It's
clock.
like there's like a clock.
The battery life, that's what it is. Every time you see the battery life dying on your cell phone, just know that's your life running out. Okay. Just to give you guys a good hopeful start to your week.
I'm glad they have those like batteries.
Yeah.
Talking about when God is bigger than everyone else.
Yeah.
He's sitting down and he's like the same size as me. So
Oh, okay, so Justin pointed out something that Beatrice also talked about, the hierarchical scale. Here's Jesus. He's sitting, but he's still as tall as everyone else. Good example of hierarchical scale here. Much like, actually, what figure also had a sitting character that was the same height as the character standing next to him? Hammurabi, right? So you got that symbol Hammurabi. Same thing going on, just a slow translation of the same ideas of design. Dominic and then Beatrice.
If we were connected to battery life, then we'd be able to recharge.
Why is that still just a general observation, Dominic? I mean, that's gonna be the only thing you're thinking about right now. Is like, if only I could plug in like a battery. I never need to sleep. All right.
You can get
Maybe
one of those
one.
batteries built into your case. Like
That's good enough for this one.
you would die too many times.
Beatrice, what's your question?
Okay, I got better at this. I'm better at quad. Okay. So, the fact that one is holding a Bible and the other one is like the alternating creates a sense of unity. Oh yeah.
Where is that?
At the bottom.
These characters here?
Yeah.
Oh, they're alternating?
Yeah.
So it's a sense of pattern or variety, but taken together, you can develop, you can argue that it has a sense of, remember, unity is how everything kind of adds together as a whole. So when things are different, it's a repeating pattern or it's variety, right? It's got different things, it's got added. So it's kind of the opposite of unity. But the whole thing together, you could argue that the whole taken together, the fact that these are registered or like in a border composition, adds to its unity, right? That the characters are all together, that sort of thing. So that'd be the proper way of using the design. Good job, Beatrice, for using the design. We got 2 minutes left. I'm gonna end. Let's see. Do I want one? What's the last one that we want? Anyone have a choice here?
Back.
This one?
Back.
Really?
Right there.
Back. You sound like
Back fresh. He looks fresh.
Really?
Really?
We'll go over a few more before tomorrow. Okay, so, but you guys go ahead and turn in what you have now. If I have any more that I do, I'll just say as an aside. Not super important. We did talk about icons, and we'll continue to talk about them only within the Western context as opposed to the Eastern. Roman Empire falls. There's an East, but there's also a West, guys, and we'll look at the West and the iteration, the formation of the West tomorrow.